Hello to my fire signs, Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. Welcome to the Capricorn full moon. You'll find the timestamps for your rising sign listed below. Hello Aries, welcome to your horoscope for the full moon in Capricorn happening on the 3rd of July at 9:40 p.m. if you're in the southern hemisphere with me. So this is going to be a full moon on a Monday night, so after the weekend that was. Hopefully I'll have these published before the weekend, so you'll maybe get to listen to it in preparation. But I'd be pretty like loose, not loose, well, maybe a little bit loose. I'd be pretty relaxed over this weekend and pretty open to some emotional intensity and deep chats and big conversations, because it's gonna feel really great and it's gonna probably lift the lid on some of the tension that may be building up or has built up till this point for you Aries rising. So Capricorn is your 10th house, which is the top of the chart. It's the most visible public part of the chart, and it has a lot to do with our legacy, what we wish to be known for and leave behind in this life. And that doesn't have to be so sort of material, but it's, get a bit sort of like, get a bit lofty about it. Like, what do I wish to leave behind? What do I wish to be remembered for? What do you spend all of your time sort of focusing on? What are you building for yourself? That's Capricorn. Capricorn loves to build. Capricorn loves to work. Capricorn loves to, in a really kind of sometimes stubborn way, keep their face firmly planted on that grindstone. Sometimes they have a bit of a difficulty like extracting their face from that grindstone because they don't really think that they're worth much unless they're producing, unless they're, holding their work up under their chin. That's why sometimes on a personality level, Capricorn can have a reputation for being like greedy or cold or like stubborn. So can you, but the stubborn bit. But what I'm saying is like the essence of Capricorn, they sometimes have a difficult time thinking that they're worth much else than what they're producing. So don't fall into that trap, Aries rising, because that's not your style. You want to sort of like lead the charge and, jump into life head first. But it's to experience, isn't it? It's not because you're an expert in anything. It's because you want to sort of keep moving and keep it going. You'll pick it up on the way. You'll learn on the way. Capricorn, there might be a bit of tension there sometimes because they're sort of like, no, you need to commit, devote, do it again. Rehearse. The rehearsal room is quite a feeling that I get in Capricorn, Anyhow, this is a full moon in Cancer season, so it's every full moon in Capricorn is always going to bring with it some level of like emotional intensity. So the sun is opposite Capricorn in Cancer at the moment. It's kind of warming up your 4th house, your sense of your home and your roots and your stability, kind of like your private world as well. In opposition to that 10th, you can see that sort of configuration. The 10th is public, the 4th is private. So there's a longing and a great feeling of like being cared for and having dinner made and being nurtured and feeling like safe and like stable in the 4th, which is really nice for us to have. For some of us that had a checkered past with our 4th house, there could be a feeling of like never quite landing anywhere and feeling at home because there's been no opportunity for the roots to take. Hopefully that hasn't been your experience, Aries. I reckon that the sentiment of like cardinal water, emotional initiation, you can feel that in the spotlight of the sun up to this moon. So maybe when thinking about your career and your legacy, your most public face, there might be some emotional turbulence that's attached to how you consider that part of your life at this moon. Hopefully those deep chats that came about over the weekend and the lead up to this moon will maybe help you sort of loosen some of that grip if you're kind of holding it all to yourself. Might be really nice to actually chat about it. I'm going to show you some tarot cards and then I'm going to pull some intuitive ones. But you can see the moon at 11 degrees of Capricorn. We can talk about the Three of Pentacles, which does talk about collaboration and about hard work. In this card, it's a model and an artist and like a lecturer or like, you know, a tutor. And so this scene can't really operate without the others. The model's just as important as the one with the pen, as the one who's giving the lesson. You know, it wouldn't work if they weren't working together in some sort of synergy. So maybe you can be like, look around you in your career zone and be grateful for your collaborations, be grateful for the folks that like make it work for you, that you sort of bounce off their vibe and they bounce off of yours and you can share ideas. That might be a really beautiful thing to do. And also, we'll head down to Cancer and look at where the sun is. And that's the Three of Cups. I love this card. This is like a sisterhood. And, you know, I use sisterhood in the proverbial sense. Sisterhood, I believe, is open to all different kinds of genders. But there's definitely a sentiment in that word, that term, that's hard to beat. When you're with folks that get you, that know how you operate, who you are, your foibles and all, when they love you, not in spite of, but kind of almost as well because of every facet of your shape, your diamond, they're like, yeah, that's my babe. I'm into that. Those kind of relationships are few and far between. And when you've got them, let them know. I think these might be the deep chats that are sort of coming your way, Aries. There might be some beautiful phone calls or some, reconnections. Maybe you've not been you've been too busy maybe to not make these connections with the folks that make your fourth house feel like it's stable. There's a housing crisis going on at the moment. And it's becoming more and more expensive to live as a single renter anywhere. And for folks that have been committing their attention and their lives to creative work, to work that has them kind of be a bit cheap to run, you know, they sort of know their budget, they know what they can live off, they know how much they're going to earn, but how much time they also need to focus on their career in their 10th house and make it worth it, you know. It's not as if there's no commitment there, there's no diligence there. This is where the good parts of Capricorn come back into the piece. You know, there is kind of like whatever it is that you are devoting your time to, Aries, it's really worth it. The culture at the moment is maybe telling us otherwise. And obviously things like inflation and the cost of living and stuff like that rise around us. But yeah, it does feel a little bit sort of tenuous at the moment. And that can make the fourth house feel unstable and feel there's an inability to set some roots down. So rather than maybe the physical space, it might be really great for us to focus in on the emotional space of what that fourth house should be like. Who are your sisters? Who are your girls? Who are these folks that are waiting to recommune and to encourage you, to let you know that like you're doing the best that you can and they're really proud of you, they're amping you up. And it's not so much about kind of like, you know, blowing smoke up your ass or anything like that. You've got a bullshit meter. You're not going to listen to people that you don't believe. And it's kind of not so much about, you know, look at, you know, all of these achievements. It's kind of like, we love you in your tracky dacks too. We love you in your you know, house clothes and your top knot and your, you know, all of that kind of stuff, the privacy, the private parts of you that aren't so available on public display, the persona up there in Capricorn in the 10th. This is what will probably, and you'll probably recognize it too as the years go by, when you come to learn that there's a Capricorn full moon, you might be like, oh yeah, that's kind of I'm back at this part of my internal work. You know, I'm sort of thinking about the relationship between public and private, and I'm thinking about what's access all areas and what I keep to myself, and who gets to see that. Maybe not many people. This is the full moon to really like celebrate them, to reach out to them and to let them know that you're grateful and that you are, you know, in full support of them too, in their privacy. Sometimes friendships, great friendships or sisterhoods can be made in the public sphere when we're working on something, working on a project. I know that to be true in my own life very, very much. And it can be difficult sometimes when that's unavailable, or if that stops, if the work stops, to have access to those relationships because they were so built on the public, on the surface. And that's not to say that they were surface level relationships. That just means that there was always, you know, for workaholics, you know, for people that are out there hustling, a lot of relationships occur in that space because that's where majority of your time is, because that's where you're like grinding those gears. So when that is sort of separate, sometimes those sisterhood relationships can kind of dissipate a little bit. But I tell you what, the ones that are like resonant, the ones that have integrity, they never go away. And sometimes these phone calls are met with it's been ages. How have you been? I love you. I can't wait to. What's been going on with you? That's really powerful and really beautiful. And that also gives you a little bit more steam as well, a little bit more gas in your tank to like stand up and continue on the journey that you're on. I know that feeling of wanting to throw it all in the bin. And in fact, indeed, I have. I didn't just think it, I did it. I'm coming back from that. Reparations can be made too if there was conflict, perhaps with some of these more intimate relationships. If there was, things that were sort of, a lot of emotions can start off as one thing. An example is fear can show itself as anger first before the root of the emotion can be revealed. And that's what these sisters are for. That's what they're good at. They're good at sort of like calling you on it too. Being like, what do you really feel? Cool. But like, what's really going on? These are the folks that I want you to be in company with this weekend. So in, Saturday, Sunday, spend time, work with the mouthpiece of Mercury in Cancer to talk about it. And then on the full moon on Monday, you might be alone in your tracky decks, but you can just like work with the release of that emotional intensity of the full moon. You can keep your eyes on the prize of your 10th house, your career, your public self. And you can be like, look, I'm loved, I'm available, I'm like present, and I'm working on it. I'm working on that 10th house. The hustle never stops for some folks, and that's our lot in life, and that's our responsibility to find different avenues where we can maintain it. I think hopefully the culture will evolve, that we're not so geared towards consistent overproduction and having to produce at all times without the fear of becoming irrelevant, or the fear of not. That's when the shadow side of Capricorn can come out too. It's sort of like, well, I'm sort of not making anything, so I'm worth nothing. I've got nothing to say to these girlfriends in my 4th house, my private mates that are wondering how I'm doing and where I am. Not what I've been making, but like just how I'm feeling. That's when we can kind of fall out of step with those relationships, because the culture would have us until our faces grinded off, But that's something for us to look forward to, I think, is a sort of maybe evolution of that kind of culture. And, you're an Aries rising, so like you don't mind being busy. You don't mind being in a million places at once. You don't mind being all over the place and being, active and involved and available. you don't have to be, if that's part of the way that you've been thinking. Like, you don't have to be continually available at all times to be worthwhile. And the Hermit just plopped out. So I got the Nine of Swords and the King of Wands and the Hermit. So these cards are sort of telling the story that I was just telling right now. The Nine of Swords is kind of this feeling of anxiety, of being up at night and feeling worried, having something really kind of like ruminate over in the mind again and again and again and again. And that can be a pretty dangerous space to be, especially if it's kept on the inside. If you've got no outlet or no avenue to like put it on the table and then sort through it, this internal battle of the mind can be so debilitating and really lonely. This King of Wands here in the center, this is someone who is incredibly confident and brave and powerful and magical and gorgeous and like available. And so I see straight up there's a disparity between these two modes of being, isn't there? If this is public and this is private, this isn't gonna help you, honey. This isn't tenable. If on your public face you're, wild child, hostess with the mostess, but inside you're crying out because you're trapped, you're feeling really suffocated, or you're feeling like there's no way out, then we gotta shift some of this around. The Hermit shows up because the Hermit is the one sort of brave enough to step away from the milieu, to go inward, and probably to heal some of this stuff. And they do so by being available and present to their spirituality, to their kind of access to, their psychedelic stratosphere. There's lessons that occur in the Hermit, in the hermitage. There's craft and there's repetition and there's practice, but it's not for any sort of public-facing notoriety or sort of show poster. It's more to do with the internal work that really is going to help. No amount of this is going to ease that. The show must go on. I've got that. My makeup may be flaking, but inside my heart is breaking. My makeup may be flaking, but I don't know where that's from. That's from somewhere. It's a Queen song, I think. Yeah, the show must go on. Actually, no, it doesn't have to go on. If you're not up to it, if you're not feeling like it, Aries, then the show can wait. The show can wait for the Hermit. That took a turn. I hope that resonated, Aries. If you're still here with me, leave me a goat in the comments, won't you, in honor of Capricorn season. I can read your birth chart or your tarot cards at umaruby.com. And if money's tight, there is a discount code, the 6 of Pentacles, which is available for all of my work at all times. So if you've always wanted a reading from me, but you can't quite justify the price at the moment, it's too out of your reach, then put in the discount code and I'll knock 25% off. There's no questions asked. You don't have to give me a reason. You can just do it. Also, you can send me some tip money if you like at buymeacoffee.com/umaruby, and I'll be with you in 2 weeks and we'll get stuck into the 4th house. We're going to talk new moon in Cancer. So the moon will be back in power rather than being so vulnerable out there in Capricorn, and we'll get to focus on our home and our roots and our privacy and our stability. We'll get to work with that area of life, and we'll get to make plans for what we want that to look like. Maybe this will be helpful for you, Aries, and that will help the 10th house too, if there's something of a feeling of stability that's been out of your reach lately. I'll see you then. Bye. Hello, Leo Rising. Welcome to your horoscope for the full moon in Capricorn happening on July the 3rd at 9:40 p.m. if you're in the southern hemisphere with me. Now, before we go anywhere, the moon is not comfortable or at home in Capricorn. So there's kind of like a feeling of tension already, but I think it's going to give way to a bit of emotional release because the moon loves it in Cancer. The moon rules Cancer, the sign. That's where some of those like relationships between the significations come out to play. If Cancer is about nurturing and kindness and care and love and empathy, and the moon regulates our emotional system, you can see how the moon in Cancer is like, yes, I know what I'm doing. In Capricorn, they're a bit out of their depth. They're a bit sort of unfamiliar in the kind of rigidity of Capricorn. In the lead up to this full moon though, which happens on a Monday night, so you'll probably be in your tracksuit pants after the weekend that was, and through the weekend that had a lot of focus on Cancer, the sign. There's going to be a cazimi, which is the conjunction of Mercury and the Sun happening in Cancer. And so when that happens, there's like a real clarity to the information that we've been receiving about that part of our chart. So in terms of our cardinal water vibes, our emotional initiation, talking about our feelings, it's almost like I can feel it here. And maybe there might be a bit of a dam swell that comes up. Maybe there might be some happy, good, valuable tears that are shed at this full moon or in the weekend leading up to it. I hope so. For you, Capricorn is sort of rules over your 6th house, which has a lot to do with the daily rhythm, the daily grind. It has a lot to do with our health, our like physical ecosystem, our body. And it can kind of talk to things like feeling like a bit of like a slave to the rhythm, if that makes any sense to you. We need structure in our lives, don't we, Leo? We need sort of routine and repetition. That's how we, that can be really, it's how we learn, we learn through trial and error, through repetition. But when we feel kind of like beholden to a certain way of being or a certain shape to our week or routine, it can feel really suffocating. It can feel like we sort of have dissociated so much that we're not present for that. And if the 6th house, it takes up most of our day. So to be so dissociated and out of step with that place, there's trouble there. So I think that this moon is sort of like here, like shining a light on maybe doing like a bit of like a body scan, sort of going through your system and being like, okay, so where am I, is there pain, is there tension? Am I sort of shutting up or not talking about something that I've really wanted to get off my chest for a while? Hopefully over the weekend, things will be able to come up for you and you'll be able to talk about it. The tarot card for 11 degrees of Capricorn, where this moon will be, is the 3 of Pentacles, and that's about collaboration. So I like to see that in the way of you not having to do all of this by yourself. I can feel in some ways those rhythms, those expectations of the day, those like really well-worn grooves on the track. You feel a bit solitary. The 3 of Pentacles talks about the necessity of collaboration when you work together with someone on a project or on a thing. When you're co-producer of something, everybody needs to pull their weight, but they also have specific skills that are sort of beneficial for that weight being pulled as well. I'm going to pull you some tarot cards to talk a little further about this. And I also wanted to highlight the tryst between Venus and Mars in your 1st house. They're coming into close contact. I think that they'll be sort of in conjunction soon enough. But Venus, the planet of beauty and pleasure and love and ecstasy, and Mars, the planet of passion, will be forming conjunction in Leo this year. And that could go one of 2 or 3 different ways, but I do feel there's a real kind of juiciness to it. So I hope that you're feeling super cute. I hope that you're feeling super confident in your body, 6th house. I hope that you're like large and in charge, Leo, and that you feel like, ready to face the world. If you're not, then this might be the moon to chat about that. This might be the time to, as I said, do the body scan and to really kind of pinpoint how you've been feeling so out of step with yourself, or how you've been feeling so out of body. I know that feeling of dissociation really well. It's something that, unfortunately, I'm pretty good mates with in my life. And the difference between feeling out of body and feeling embodied, the healing power of when you're in your physical body. And, sometimes it's not always so easy. Sometimes the pain points are pretty intense. And often those physical symptoms are related to something emotional, something that's going on in the inner workings too. And that can open up a whole nother can of worms that we have to look at and go over. So, yeah, tender stuff, tender hooks. But I'm looking at that collaboration card again. And yeah, when it comes to this, you don't have to do it all by yourself. That's not something that you can hold on one shoulder as you're dealing with the rest of life. Yeah. The tarot cards that I got for you are the 8 of Swords and the Devil and the Hanged One. So the Devil is Capricorn vibes. The Devil in the Major Secrets of the Tarot talks about habitual repetition. It talks about being a slave to the rhythm, and it talks about the sort of chokehold or the things that we rely on that we think are providing us with relief, when in fact they're standing in the way of the bigger revelations that can occur. When you think about Capricorn and the Devil, it's also like that sort of like slave to the rhythm of life. This is actually a really good sort of juicy description for your 6th house, I think, Leo. Slave, I've got Grace Jones in my head, but slave to the rhythm, but not in a beautiful Grace Jones way of like being a slave to the rhythm, quite literally being trapped, being stuck in a mode that you don't know how to get out of. Yeah, addictions, we are all vulnerable to addiction. I am addicted to lots of things, and we become that way because we're looking for relief, aren't we? We're looking for some sort of like pressure release, some bit of room to move. And yeah, we can, I've been thinking a lot about dopamine addiction and stuff like that too, with technology and sort of consistent scrolling and posting and consuming. That's a modern day addiction that I think a lot of us can empathize with. We're looking for some sort of relief. The body is sort of looking for some kind of, it's a reward system, a bit perverse. This is what the Devil talks about. The beauty of this card is that those chains around the necks of these two folks, they're like necklaces. They're not tight, they're not locked. They're loose chains that hang sort of like a necklace, and they can be taken off and set down whenever they're ready. Sometimes the rhythm, we've got to keep going. We can't break this rhythm yet. We can't break the chains because we've just got to keep going. There'll be a time when there's a clearing enough for you to lift off those chains, Leo. So I hope that for you. I really wish that for you. The other cards I got were the 8 of Swords and the Hanged One. So yeah, another message of anxiety, another message of sort of entrapment. You can feel that, with the ropes and the swords and the blindfold. It does feel pretty cloistered, shut in. The good thing about the 8 of Swords is the realization that those ropes are really loose and that there's like freedom available if only the person in the card would be able to calm down enough to recognize that. It feels a bit cagey. It's sort of, there's definitely a feeling of like anxiety in the 8 of Swords. and it appears to be a cage of swords, but it's not actually. There's none in the front. They can walk forward whenever they like. The thing that I always look at too is the water in the earth, sort of rising water, rising emotion. So maybe there's something about being sort of like held in one particular space because of the fear of like the emotions sort of swelling up. This moon in Capricorn might be, as I said, there could be some good tears to be shed at this time. So don't fight it if it starts to happen. Definitely, pad the cell, find your safe space. But maybe, take the opportunity if you can after the weekend to, take those messages that you maybe received through conversation with folks, through like heart-to-hearts, deep chats over the weekend. And then on Monday, you can sort of like set yourself free a little bit from some of those binds that have been holding you in place, keeping you on one particular tread, The other card I got was the Hanged One. So it might be like, it's this feeling of like, okay, so this is bondage. The devil's telling me about the bondage that I'm in at the moment, self-inflicted or otherwise, but there's definitely a feeling of like, slave to a rhythm. Look what the Hanged One's doing though. They're also trapped. They're also in bondage. They're also captive, but they're illuminated. They've found there's a breakthrough that's happening for them as we speak. They're hanging from one foot by a tree, but they've taken the road that's like, I'm just going to like let go of control and allow this to come in, allow this to, this information, this state of being, to fill me up. I'm transmuting this energy into something golden. I'm not frightened. I'm not trapped. I'm actually free. From the inside out, I'm free. I mean, that's nice, Leo. I hope that it's as sort of like transcendental as that for you. It might not be, it might be just a good old reason to have a good old cry. And that's, that's bloody good enough for me. That's a night well spent. Have a think about Venus and Mars edging closely further together in your first house. If you've been feeling out of step with your own, like, sexuality or your own desirability, is that the right word? If you've been feeling kind of like not open or available or aware of that, there could be a rush of sweetness. There could be a feeling of like coming back together with yourself or coming back into that mode. And that could have a lot to do with your sixth house too, with your health, your body. That could be something. It's funny, I'm reminded of something else. I won't go into it. But like that kind of like, we were talking about disembodied and embodied and the difference between those two. We can't perpetually be, available and fully embodied and fully ready and present and feeling it. Some people strive for that. Some people, their whole life's work is just that, and it's sort of, sharing it with other people too, reminding them that they have the power to do so. Some people, that's a much more difficult journey to take. And sometimes this disembodied feeling came from a place of protecting oneself, came from a place of trauma. And so that journey back to embodiment, sexually or otherwise, just physically really, is a much longer, harder road. And so if that's what you're experiencing right now, Leo, then I want to like pull the reins on the speed of this reading. You take it all at your own time. And maybe, I don't have the exact date here, but I'll remind you in the next reading, I think, of when that happened. But that exact conjunction of Venus and Mars, it might work as just like, a wave or a glimmer of ignition on the inside for you. Could be really just a gentle ripple, but you don't have to, get out there and get back on the horse if you don't want to. You take as much time as you need, and you'll take as much time as you need to lift that blindfold off from the Eight of Swords too, and realize that you're not in danger, that you're safe, and that you can move forward, you can step forward from here. That's your reading, Leo. Thanks for being here with me. Love you lots. If you are still here with me, put a little goat in the comments, won't you? Thank you very much for that. Also, I can read your birth chart at umaruby.com. You can send me some tip money at buymeacoffee.com/umaruby, and I'll be with you in 2 weeks, and we're going to be discussing the new moon in Cancer. So at the crescendo of Cancer season, we're going to be taking the journey back to your 12th house of the unseen, of the hidden. So I look forward to that one. Much love to you. Take care. Hello, Sagittarius rising. Welcome to your horoscope for the full moon in Capricorn, happening on the 3rd of July at 9:40 p.m. if you're in the southern hemisphere with me. So it's going to be a Monday night full moon after a weekend of potentially some pretty beautiful, intense, deep chats, some conversations about love and connection and emotion. So we can look forward to that. There's some nice little configurations and conjunctions in the lead up to this full moon, which is like the release valve. Now, the moon isn't so comfortable in Capricorn because it's opposite from the house that it has rulership over. So the moon loves it in Cancer. That's why the two are kind of quite interwoven in their definitions. Things like emotions and the body and love and nurturing and kindness can be related both to the moon and to Cancer. And so in opposition to Cancer, we find Capricorn. And so you can kind of see that the moon's kind of out of its depth. It's sort of feeling a little bit lost at sea, maybe, out there in the drier terrain of Capricorn. But that's all right. I think that it's going to be, one good thing to remember is that the sun is in Cancer at a full moon in Capricorn. So it's like an anchor of support that's being offered to the moon by the sun, and almost like a sort of like encouragement to like get to the root of some deeper feelings as well. So yeah, the deep chats will be sort of taking place on the 1st, the 2nd, I think, just as we sort of enter July and as we like gear up for the weekend, come together, celebrate whatever it is you've got planned for this weekend. And then on Monday, the full moon will be shining a little spotlight onto your 2nd house, which is where we think about our values and where we think about our bank balance, our coin, our resources, how we like are resourceful, how we provide for ourselves and take care of all of our growing list of more expensive needs. So the tarot card for the moon in Capricorn is the 3 of Pentacles. And I like this for a 2nd house kind of vibe, because this card talks about collaboration. It talks about using our strengths to work together with someone else to sort of build something together. You know, that everyone's integral in this drawing here. You can't do this without the model or the artist or the lecturer, the one that's giving instruction. So that's really lovely to think about the 2nd house and think about how you earn money, how your resources, how they kind of show up for you and how you like bring them in. It's nice to have this sort of sense of collaboration there too. I'm sure that you kind of like to work with others, Sagittarius. You're not much of a lone wolf. You kind of like to work as a group. I would imagine that you like kind of, and that's kind of like, yeah, isn't that funny? As soon as I said that, I was like, but there might be some lingering qualities about your experience in working with others that has you feeling, oh man, I'm better off alone. That could be something that presents itself in a Sagittarius rising. But I really think like you're a good team player. I think that's probably a good way to put it. You're a really good team player. You love to win, but you love to be on team. Actually really, really feed off of this space. So that might be something to think about. Maybe when when the moon's highlighting your second house of resources, you can think to yourself, okay, so am I in my element? Am I working that collaborative muscle? Do I miss it a bit? Have I not collaborated and I really long to? It's been a while because I've been kind of a bit self-made lately. I've kind of been going it alone and I've learned, my life has taught me that I'm sort of a bit better, a bit more autonomous in my work practice. Yeah, it's just one thing to think about. Because the other thing is that the sun in Cancer that's shining its light on this second house is the Three of Cups, and that's all about sisterhood. That's about, the proverbial girl gang. That's about getting together and hanging out and like loving one another, separate from work. So I like this sort of opposition because one's kind of quite, responsible and practical, and the other one's all about emotions. And this is what we're going through in Cancer season. We're coming back to the emotional quick of some things. We're kind of really getting into some of the deeper recesses, the depths of our emotions, how we've been feeling lately. And this card is perfect for chatting it out and talking about it and sharing. You can be yourself in the company of these folks. I hope that you can be yourself in the company of your mates too, Sagittarius. Sometimes when we're sort of, in the workshop and we're so kind of like focused on this, it can get a bit lonely because and I know what it feels like too to sort of consistently have to kind of like hustle. Don't get me wrong, like you've got to work, you've got to keep going, you've got to do that stuff. But the Cancer sun on this Capricorn moon, it does feel like, a reminder that you're also able to make a mess and to not get it right and to be a bit of a fuck up. We're all allowed to be a bit of a fuck up at times. And if we've been feeling out of step or out of reach from folks that we care about or folks that love us, then the best way to solve that is to give them a ring, call them up, have a chat. It takes bravery to do that, especially if it's been, a bit long between drinks or if there's been a bit of time that's passed. When I think about the last 3 years or so, I think that everyone's hopefully in more of a headspace of giving other folks the time that they need to recoup. Hopefully there's not this urgency to sort of rush or get back to rushing things through. Even socially, this sort of like thing of like social responsibility. That could just be me, but I'm quite a hermit these days. But like, it does feel like if you're longing for something, and if that thing is emotional understanding and connection and love from people, irregardless of what it is that you're doing for work or how much money you've got in your bank or, what you're busy with, if you just want to hang out and talk rubbish, do it. Hopefully you've got people in your life that you can be that vulnerable and that free and that ineffective, that lazy with. There's something about Cancer season in the Southern Hemisphere, maybe not so much. Well, I guess maybe, probably is in a different way. I was going to say there's something kind of like nocturnal and sort of like there's a feeling of like wanting to be quiet and go inward in the Southern Hemisphere during Cancer season because it does get so cold. You'll laugh at me if you're from the north because we don't have winters like you. And in the north, there's that summer nights kind of feeling. So yeah, I guess there's a Cancer will always bring us back together. Cancer will always gather the troops. It might not be ideal. It might not be timely, But the funny thing is, and when I think about my life and I think about all of the different Cancer seasons that I've had, the commonality is, this sort of like journey inward, and then a bit of melancholy about being a bit sort of lonely and yearning for a bit of connection, and then being brave enough to accept the offer and going and getting it. So hopefully it's that simple for you, Sagittarius. I hope it is. But I think, this like full moon lighting up the second house, your values, what you're worth, how you're earning money, like whatever, if there are any, like stresses or worries or shortcomings about that place for you, hopefully this moon you'll be able to be like, okay, like shake it off. Like, at this point, I'm doing fine. I've got what I've got, and I'm doing all right. There's room to grow. There's room to move. Maybe you've like just hit a massive windfall and you're rolling around in success. That could be something that's happening too. Don't know, Sagittarius. If that's the case, then, call your mates and celebrate. Yeah, call your mates and celebrate. Call your mates and celebrate, even if it's a failure that you're experiencing. Even if things are bloody hard and you're really stressed out and you're worried about the mortgage or the bills or the rent or there's enough food in the fridge, call your mates and be like, I'm still here. I'm getting by. I'm moving through it. It's tough, but I'm doing it. You got the Eight of Cups in reverse, and this card talks about going out and journeying to find something, to bring it back, the great seeking sort of feeling about this card. This is in reverse, so it's sort of like, maybe you just like look what's in your backyard. What do you have now that's worth it? Are they relationships in your life? Are they good friends that you can rely on? Are those relationships or those friendships, do they need a little bit of work? And that's not criticism. All relationships need work. All relationships need an investment to keep them growing. Sometimes some of them can lay a bit dormant because there's been no time or resources to be able to tend to them, or there's been a bit of internal work that we've had to go through to be a bit of a sad sack by ourselves, or we're working on something else. What I find in life, and I hope this is true for you too, Sagittarius, that some relationships can go unwatered and untended to for as long as you need them to, as long as you keep forgetting to tend to them. The moment that you start putting a little water on them, like a sturdy house plant, they spring back to life. You get by with a little help from your friends. Sorry to be so twee, but you do. You get by with a little help from your friends, and hopefully in your, close inner circle, in your, Three of Cups environment, you feel that they're reliable and that you don't have to be this version or that version or the other version of yourself for them to love you, and you don't have to feel super guilty about being absent. We're all pretty high in our own supply, and not because we want to be, I reckon. It really is because we're sort of like trained to be in this culture of overproduction and overpopulation and overstimulation. Everyone's pretty trained to be high on their own supply, to sort of like, give the edit of the life and put it on the social media, or consistently make. What are you doing? Yeah, good, busy. I have a running joke with one of my friends, whenever they ask, and this is actually probably one of the friendships that I'm describing right now, one of those ones when it's my responsibility to tend to it. It's one of those friendships where, yonks can go by and we can reconnect, and we reconnect exactly where we need it. And they'll always say to me, how are you? Yeah, good, busy. It's a bit facetious, but it's like there's different friendships, there's different levels of friendship and intimacy. Some of them are purely based in work and production and resources and face value. And that's all right. You're a Sagittarius. You're probably really good at those relationships as well. You probably love them. The real ones, the ones that are worth their weight, are the ones that hit you in your funny bone and that really cut to the quick of the niceties of adult friendships. If hanging out and talking about being good and busy makes you uncomfortable, then seek out those friends that can laugh about that with you. You don't have to hold that work up under the chin like a Capricorn always tends to do. To be like, have a talking point, have something to talk about. I got the 7 of Wands and I got the 4 of Wands. So yeah, I think in that way of me talking about this sort of like defensiveness, this is not the moon for it. There'll be other times, there'll be other full moons in Capricorn that are focused on your second house, where there will be that opportunity to be like, oh, job well done, don't you just love success? Look around at all of this that I've created. There'll be time for that. Maybe that's happening for you now, Sagittarius. If it's not, it's okay. It's okay. And I'm not going to say because that ship's coming and you're going to... Nothing lasts forever. Nothing lasts forever. The feeling of love is eternal and in no short supply. So if that's a resource that you've been worried about, that you're in short supply of, go tap into it wherever you can find it. Be yourself, because apart, take it all off. Wipe. It says me, and I've put my little. I like to look cute for camera. Look, lots of powder looks good on camera. But this is the full moon for you to be yourself with those that you love. Yeah. That's the reading, Sag. Much love to you, my darling. If you're still here with me, put a little goat in the comments. That would be awesome, in honor of Capricorn season and all of our striving and ambition. A little goat might be nice. You can be ambitious too, Sagittarius. I'm not saying that you can't be. I think that whenever, it's because it's the full moon in Capricorn, the sun is in Cancer. So there's emotional stuff that needs to come out. I can also read your birth chart or your tarot cards at umaruby.com. You can put some money in the tip jar at buymeacoffee.com/umaruby. Enjoy your weekend. Have those deep chats. Talk about it. Cry if you need to. Enjoy the full moon. Release. Set it free. Put it out there. And I'll be with you in 2 weeks to discuss the new moon in Cancer. So we'll be switching the script and we'll be heading to the house of grief and connection, and we'll be working on strategies of how to move through that part of our life, move with that part of our life. Remember, it's a cycle, so it comes back. You're not in deficit if it comes back. Much love. Bye.